Hi, what's up everyone on YouTube? This is SimGirl1721. I'm gonna talk more about the what I'm trying to do is like, there's like I Heart Pluto Festival, and there's like an I Heart Pluto Festival in 2026. Yeah, yeah. And I'm just trying to prove why Pluto's still a planet now. Yeah, here you go. I want to prove that this guy is wrong. Neil Tyson. Oh yeah, and this book too. And Mike Brown, I want to prove that you're wrong too. And the solar system model too, see? Well, guess what? We're going to make Pluto great again. We're going to change this model. We're going to put Pluto back on the model. Here we go. Yeah, because, here's what I didn't say in my August, here's what I did not say in my August video. Yeah, what I did not say in my, what I did not say in my August video, that I did more research about Pluto for, most of 2025, and I came to the conclusion that Pluto is similar to all 8 planets. That's why with Neil Tyson and Mike Brown, they say, oh, Pluto is like, the Neil Tyson and Mike Brown, they say that, oh, the Pluto is very different, and the Pluto is different from the 8 planets. But I did research that the Pluto is like all 8 planets after all. That's right. Pluto is like all 8 planets. And those are some examples of what I did not talk about in my other video. I only mostly compared Pluto to Mercury and Saturn. I compared Pluto to Mercury and Saturn for the last video, but I realized that Pluto is similar to all 8 planets. That Pluto is similar to Mercury through Neptune, and I'm going to give some examples of why Pluto is like all those 8 planets. I did, the last time I focused on, comparing Pluto to Mercury and Saturn. Now, what I did with the research about, with Mercury and Saturn, I did that with, here's the things that Pluto has in common with Venus. That's right, Venus. You know how Venus is very hot. You know how Venus is the hottest planet in our solar system, right? The Venus is the hottest. Well, out of the original 9 planets, if you go by the original 9, the Pluto is the coldest planet. If you go by the original 9 planets that we grew up learning in school, that out of the original 9 planets, Pluto is the coldest. Because of Venus's temperatures can go up to 900 Fahrenheit. Venus's temperatures can go up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit for Venus. 900. For Pluto is like negative 400 at the Pluto's temperatures. Pluto's temperatures can go up to negative 400. So think about it like a 900 degree planet, Venus, versus a negative 400 degrees Pluto. That's right. Venus, 900 degrees. Pluto, negative 400. Yep. And also, too, what Venus has in common with Pluto, they both have, slow rotations, and then Mercury has this, too, that out of the original 9 planets now, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto, they have the slowest rotations. Well, Mercury's Mercury's rotation is, sorry, I had to cough. I guess I'm a little sick, from the weather and stuff like that. Mercury's rotation is 58 days. 58 days for Mercury's rotation to have one Earth day. Venus is 243 days to have an Earth day. That Venus has 243 days for one Earth day. For Pluto's Earth day is 6 days. So Pluto has 6 days for one Earth day. So you're talking about days to have one Earth day for Mercury, Venus, and Pluto. It takes days to have one Earth day, and that's what Pluto has in common. Pluto has in common with both Mercury and Venus. That's right, the first two planets, how Pluto is like Mercury and Venus. And also, too, that Mercury and Venus, they kind of have Mercury and Venus, they kind of have a dual classification. Well, kind of. How Mercury and Venus, sometimes they're called, with Mercury and Venus, sometimes they're called the morning stars or the evening stars. Sometimes they're referred to as Mercury and Venus. They're referred to as the morning/evening stars. Even Mercury and Venus, well, they're not really stars. They're the planets, but they have a star, a dual classification as a nickname. But but the point I'm trying to make is that Mercury and Venus, they're more than just planets. The Mercury and Venus, they're also the morning and the evening stars. Even though they're not stars, the morning and evening stars are just their nicknames, but they're not stars and planets at the same time. They're not stars. They're Mercury and Venus are still planets now, but they have that star category as a nickname, but they're not really stars. Now, for Pluto, but Pluto has a dual classification. Pluto is a dwarf planet. Pluto is a dwarf planet and a Kuiper Belt object. That Pluto is a dwarf planet and a Kuiper Belt object. That Pluto is a part of the Kuiper Belt. But the thing about how Pluto was demoted in 2006, with the IAU's criteria, that the IAU's criteria with the three categories that a planet has to orbit the sun, be round, and to clear the neighborhood of its orbit down. That a planet has to orbit the sun, to be mostly round, spherical, and to clear that neighborhood around its orbit down. So the astronomers are really trying to say that they don't want a planet to hang inside a belt at all. They want a planet. They want they're the definition of clearing a neighborhood around its orbit down. Because Mercury through Neptune, they're not inside a belt. The asteroid and the Kuiper belts. How Mercury through Neptune, they're not inside a belt. At least not directly inside a belt with Mercury through Neptune. They're not directly inside a belt. But Pluto, the reason why they demoted Pluto in 2006 is because Pluto is sometimes placed inside the Kuiper belt. Well, sometimes, Then if you look where Pluto is at, Pluto is inside the Kuiper belt. Sometimes it is, but not always. It's that Pluto is not inside the Kuiper belt all the time because, Pluto's orbit is very tilted like this. That Pluto's orbit is tilted now, so Pluto sometimes can move away from the asteroids from the Kuiper belt. That Pluto can, move away from the asteroids. That Pluto has the gravity to move away from the asteroids. Sometimes it can. It depends if Pluto is away from the Kuiper belt. That Pluto can move away from the asteroids, from the Kuiper belt. But the thing is with Neptune, and this is what the astronomers don't say about Neptune. Just like Pluto, Neptune is also near the Kuiper belt. That's right, though. The Neptune is right near the Kuiper belt, and it looks like where Neptune is at, though, it almost looks like the Neptune is inside the Kuiper belt, a tiny bit now. And you're talking about the big boys. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they're the big boys. But yeah, just like Pluto's near the Kuiper Belt, well, Neptune is also near the Kuiper Belt too. And it kind of looks like that the Neptune may be inside the Kuiper Belt a little bit. That it looks like where Neptune's at, the Neptune could be inside the Kuiper Belt a little bit. But Neptune a planet though? But the thing is that Neptune was never demoted. Even though Neptune is right near the Kuiper Belt, and it looks like that Neptune may be inside the Kuiper Belt a little bit though. That the Neptune may be inside the Kuiper Belt just a tiny bit. But guess what? Is Neptune a planet? Yes. Because, Neptune was never demoted, but then they demoted Pluto because Pluto is inside the Kuiper Belt sometimes, So basically, you guys demoted Pluto for being inside a belt, but not Neptune. Even though Neptune is inside the Kuiper Belt a tiny bit though, it looks like the Neptune's inside the Kuiper Belt like a tiny bit though. But guess what? The Neptune's inside the belt like a tiny bit, but I guess because Neptune is huge, they don't want to say that Neptune is on a planet though, because it'll be silly for them to. If they ever demote it, I bet you if they ever say that that Jupiter's on a planet and Saturn's on a planet, Uranus is not a planet, Neptune's not a planet. If they demote one of those planets, if they ever demote Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, if they demoted one of them, the IOUs, the careers are, they would be over. I mentioned especially if they demote Jupiter, the biggest planet. If they ever, it'd be really funny if they ever demoted Jupiter. If they ever say, guess what, Jupiter is no longer a planet. That'd be real funny how stupid that sounds. Oh, Jupiter. Did they want the Jupiter to become stupider? Speaking of stupider with Jupiter, oh, yeah, right. Did these astronomers, did they want the Jupiter to get more stupider? And I remember, too, back in 2001, I want to do a little flashback. When I was into planets back in, like in 2000 to 2001, I was really into planets. So I was really into planets when I was like 9 to 10 years old, When I was like 9 years old to 10, I was really into planets. I was learning about the solar system since I was 9 years old. I remember I was in 3rd grade. Back then, I memorized all the 9 planets. But don't be really stupid. But yeah, I remember that, the space joke I made about Jupiter as a kid, I realized that, wait, Jupiter rhymes with stupider. So that's a space joke I made as a kid now. That I realized, wait a minute, I was like 10 to 11 years old. I was like, wait, Jupiter rhymes with the word stupider. And did these astronomers, they want the Jupiter to get stupider? And oh yeah, to get the Pluto, you have to go to Jupiter first. So did they want the Jupiter to get stupider? Did they want the Jupiter to get stupider before they went to Pluto? Because when you get to Pluto, you have to go to the past. You have to bypass Jupiter. And did they get stupider when they went past Jupiter or flew by Jupiter to get to Pluto? And they were like really, really stupider. And by the time they got to Pluto, they got really, really stupider for going to Jupiter. But yeah, if they ever demoted Jupiter as a planet now, I bet you the careers will be over, and that definition will be rescinded. It would be rescinded now, like for real now. But the point I'm trying to make in the video on that, and that Pluto is like all 8 planets after all. That I found, I compare Pluto to Mercury and Saturn and a little bit of Uranus now, not as much with Uranus now. I didn't compare Pluto to Uranus that much. But, a little bit there, but I did try to, I did try to compare Pluto to all 8 of them. And I'm going to compare Pluto to all 8 now, because, we're going to make Pluto a planet again. And Pluto needs to be the nice planet again, and without that demotion, I have never supported it now. That, Pluto's, 2006 demotion, I have never supported it now. Not from the beginning now. And I'm trying to prove that Pluto is like all 8 planets, after all. And let's see if I think of anything else I can say in this video too, before I end it down. I think that the Pluto is like all 8 planets after all. And I'll prove it when I do more comparisons. That Pluto is like Earth, like Mars, like Jupiter. And I was able to, and I did compare Pluto to Jupiter before. Out of the original 9 planets, going by the original 9 that you learned in school, Pluto was the smallest, right? And Jupiter is the biggest. How Pluto is the smallest and Jupiter is the biggest. So that's how Jupiter has in common with Pluto. That's right. I said Jupiter has in common with Pluto that Jupiter is the biggest and Pluto is the smallest. And also that's pretty cool. That's maybe not really scientific though. But that Pluto has a big heart though. Pluto has a big heart on the surface though. And Jupiter has that big giant red spot though. Well, if you compare that, combine Pluto's heart with Jupiter's red spot, big red spot, if you compare Pluto's heart to Jupiter's big red spot, you get heart eyes. Heart eyes. And that film, though, the Heart Eyes film, I have never seen it, though. And I watched the trailer yesterday, it's pretty cool, and they had that song, "You're just too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you." How, it's pretty cool with the Heart Eyes trailer, they have that song, "You're just too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you." That's a great song, I love that song. But yeah, they had the trailer in the Heart Eyes film. I have never seen the film before. Maybe I'll watch it one day. I have never seen the film. But yeah, if you combine Pluto with Jupiter, you get freaking heart eyes. How cool is that? But that's not really scientific though. That's like aesthetic and what Pluto has in common with Jupiter now. Another thing that Pluto has in common with Jupiter, it's less scientific though, but how Pluto's planet number and Jupiter's planet number, they're both odd numbers, Jupiter is the 5th planet now, and Pluto is the 9th, they're both odd numbers, the numbers 5 and 9, they're odd numbers. So that's another thing that Pluto has in common with Jupiter. The planet numbers 5 and 9, they're odd numbers. So does that mean the odd planets are Jupiter and Pluto, the odd planets are? Because the planet numbers are odd. No, I'm just kidding about the about Jupiter and Pluto being odd. I mean, like what they both are. I mean, the planet numbers are odd. So that's what Pluto does have in common with Jupiter. But yeah, but Jupiter is the biggest planet down, and Pluto is the smallest. Now Jupiter is the biggest down, and Pluto is the smallest. Well, out of the original 9, if you're not counting Eris, if you're not counting Ceres, I'm trying to compare Pluto to all 8 planets, and now the comparisons I've seen with Pluto with Neptune, everyone says that Pluto's orbit crosses with Neptune's. People say that all the time, and so I've seen a lot of people compare Pluto to Neptune already. How Pluto, crosses Neptune's orbit there. That Pluto's crosses Neptune's orbit. So you guys already compared Pluto to Neptune in either way. And that's more common now, comparing Pluto to Neptune. That's very common because Pluto is right next to Neptune. So of course there's going to be Neptune and Pluto comparisons. A lot of that, but that's obvious. The Neptune and Pluto comparisons is obvious, but not as obvious with Jupiter and Pluto. But I'm doing it as uncommon, when I compare Pluto to more like Jupiter and Venus, then it's more uncommon. For some reason, it's uncommon to compare Pluto with. It's uncommon to compare Pluto with Venus and Jupiter. And the thing about Venus and Jupiter, for some reason, I was looking at the skies last year in 2025. For some reason, Venus likes to hang out with Jupiter too. As another thing about Venus and Jupiter, Venus rhymes with genius. And Jupiter rhymes with stupider. So you have, the Venus rhymes with genius. The Venus rhymes with genius. And Jupiter rhymes with stupider. So you have a genius planet and a dumb planet, doing I guess the opposites attract now. Yeah. But yeah, I just compare. I mostly, I was trying to compare, especially with the uncommon planets, Pluto with Venus and Jupiter now. For some reason, people don't compare. They don't compare Pluto to Venus and Jupiter that often, but I did. But Pluto and Neptune is more common now. I see. Comparing Pluto to Neptune, I see that's more common. So I'm not trying to compare Pluto to Neptune as much. People already do that though. There are Neptune and Pluto. They compare it pretty often. I'm just trying to do a planets that don't compare. And with Saturn and Pluto now, I did that already. I talked about the other video with the Saturn and Pluto, and how Pluto's tilted orbit matches with Saturn's tilted rings. How it's pretty cool how Pluto's tilted orbit matches with Saturn's tilted rings, and I found out how much it matches with Pluto's orbit and Saturn's rings. Now Pluto's orbit is tilted. Pluto's orbit is tilted at 17 degrees. Pluto's orbit is tilted at 17 degrees. Saturn's tilted rings is tilted at 27. So Saturn's tilted rings. Saturn's tilted rings is tilted at 27. That's like a 10-degree difference. So for Pluto 17, Saturn 27. That's how much that Pluto's tilted orbit down matches with Saturn's tilted rings. They're just 10 degrees off. That's how much they match. It's Pluto is a planet. We gotta make Pluto a planet again. That proves there. I compare Pluto to Saturn now. Pluto is a planet there. Especially when I compare Pluto to Saturn and Jupiter. Yeah, you know what? And Mike Brown, I knew that, that Mike Brown and Neil Tyson, they're wrong about Pluto. Either way, and they get the facts wrong. And I don't know why people believe in them. You can't always believe what you read on the internet now. People tend to lie. You can't always believe what you hear on the internet now. Just because they say it's on the internet, it doesn't make it true, Because the internet is not always accurate, Wikipedia is not always accurate, you have to get, more reliable sources, But that's how much that Pluto's tilted orbit now matches with Saturn's tilted rings. 10 degrees. 10 degrees difference. That means that Saturn's tilted rings and Pluto's tilted orbit now. They almost match perfectly. And speaking of Saturn and Pluto, I got this book for my birthday. I'll show this off. Speaking of Saturn and Pluto, I got this book too. Neil Tyson and my friend. Have you ever seen this? It says Saturn and Pluto. Does this book prove that Pluto was a planet now? Saturn and Pluto. A book. Yeah, Mike Brown and Neil Tyson. Have you ever seen this book though? No. Here's other books I do have. So, I got this book too. I got this last year too. Alan Stern and David Grinspan. Alan Stern and David Grinspan. I have this book too. Here's other books I do have down on the shelf before I end this video. Another book about Saturn now. Here's another book from Alan Stern now. Pluto and Sharon. Pluto's moon Sharon now. Pretty cool. Pluto and Sharon. And this book was This book was made by Clyde Tombaugh. Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto in 1930, but this book was written by Clyde Tombaugh himself, the discoverer of Pluto. Clyde Tombaugh, and I got this for Christmas of 2025. I just got this book for Christmas too. The latest Pluto book I got. The Out of the Darkness, the Planet Pluto. See how it says planet? See? By the discoverer himself, Clyde Tombaugh. And I know that Clyde Tombaugh, he's smiling up in heaven. Yes, I am a religious person. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. God and Jesus. I believe when we all die, we go to heaven. And Clyde Tombaugh, when he sees that Pluto becomes a planet again, officially, Clyde Tombaugh, he'll be smiling up in heaven. And what we're gonna do is I didn't talk about this yet. How to make Pluto a planet again. Kirby Runyon and Phil Metzger, Kirby Running, Alan Stern, and Mark Sykes. They did that, in 2017. They put up the geophysical definition now. That's a great definition, the geophysical definition. Well, that needs to totally rescind the IAU definition. That nobody should be following the IAU definition anymore. It's a real terrible definition. And I said it's another definition. The IAU definition of a planet is so broken, is so flawed. There's nothing good about it, though. Think about it. Who wants to only have 8 planets? Yeah, you can't count it in your fingers now? 5, and then... Who wants to only have 8 planets? I don't want to have 8 planets. I want to have more than 8 in you. Come on now. I want to have more than 8 planets. It's just too strict now. But yeah, that geophysical definition of a planet that was created by Alan Stern, Kirby Runyon, Mark Sykes now, Phil Metzger, that's a great definition, the geophysical definition. That needs to replace the IAU definition. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to contact Laurel Cornfield. And what I'm going to do is, I'll talk to her and see if I can help, Laurel Cornfield. She's a great person. I was watching her. Laurel Cornfield, because I'm going to see if I can contact Laurel Cornfield. Because we got to debunk Neil Tyson. We got to debunk Mike Brown. We gotta show them that they're wrong. Like with Neil Tyson and Mike Brown. And this has been happening for too long. For 19 years. This Pluto thing, what happened to Pluto for 19 years? Almost 20. Oh, shoot. Yeah. If we don't bring Pluto back by August of 2026, if we don't, then Pluto would have been demoted for 20 years. A 20-year anniversary demotion. We're gonna put an end to that. So what we're going to do is, let's make Pluto a planet again before August of 2026. Because if we don't, you'll have like a 20th anniversary of Pluto's in motion for 20th anniversary. If we don't bring Pluto back by this year, in August of 2026, if we don't do that, then we are doomed. Well, not doomed for life now, but that means that we failed to bring Pluto back down, But if I talk to Laurel Cornfield, if I talk to her, if I talk to Ellen Stern, if I talk to any of these people, if I contact, Kirby Runyon, Alan Stern, Phil Metzger, and Mark Sykes, if I contact any of them, then I can bring Pluto back. If I'm involved, I think I can do it. So let's make Pluto great again. Before August of 2026. Let's make Pluto the 9th planet again, officially. Because Pluto deserves to be a planet, y'all. Because Pluto is like the 8 planets. We gotta bring Pluto back. Officially. Not just to say that Pluto is a planet in one definition, but not the other now. We don't need 2 separate definitions. We need to have one definition. The geophysical definition needs to be official. It needs to be official, the geophysical definition of a planet now. That needs to be official. No one should support the IAU definition. I don't know why, so there's a lot of scientists that still support the IAU's definition. And the IAU's definition, I never supported it. It's a bad, definition. I have never supported it. I wanted to get rid of that. I wanted to get rid of the IAU definition for a long time. It's a very poor, it's a very bad definition. And it's really biased against Pluto. Like, it really is very biased. For example, now, it's very biased against Pluto now. Because, Venus has a slow rotation. The Venus has the slowest rotation. But Venus is still a planet. But at the original 9 planets, while Pluto has the slowest orbit, Pluto has the slowest orbit now. 248 years. 248 years. That out of the original 9 planets, Pluto has the slowest orbit. And you're going to tell me, Pluto is not a planet because it has a slow orbit now? That Pluto is not a planet because it has a slow orbit now. But, Venus has the slowest rotation. Venus has a solar rotation, but y'all calling, you're saying that Venus is not a planet? Yeah, according to the IU, Venus is a planet. But even though the Venus has the slowest rotation, now. But then Pluto has the slowest orbit too, out of the original 9. But then y'all saying that Pluto's not a planet now? Yeah, y'all dissing on Pluto for having a slow orbit now? Y'all dissing on Pluto for having a slow orbit now? But Venus has a slow rotation, the slowest rotation now. But you never diss on Venus for having the slowest rotation. Y'all never diss on Venus, and I've been comparing about Venus to Pluto, in the area too. But I recorded for over 30 minutes, and if I have more to say about Pluto now, I'll have an update video. I'll make an update video about because my video was almost 30 minutes long. Peace and make Pluto great again. Yeah.